Cool. If we got nothing else, I'll mute us and we'll get started.
Okay.
Cool. Welcome to Run with Purpose. This is episode number 106. And for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. And as always, you can reach out to me on all the socials at flores.run. We've got another wonderful guest on the show today. You guys know I spend an odd amount of time stalking people on Instagram. It really should be concerning to a lot of people, the stalking that I do on Instagram. But our guest today, Jen, I had come across her on Instagram. She had followed because she had heard about the podcast from someone else. So I was just like, hey, I do my typical stalking stuff. And I'm like, oh, she seems to have like a really cool story. And then of course, just, slide in the DMs, be like, hey, you want to talk with a stranger on a podcast? Because that seems like a good idea. So I'm excited to kind of get into her story and learn a little bit more about her. But Jen, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, it should be a fun time. Before we kind of get into any of this stuff, how can people connect with you on social or connect with you if they want to do that further?
Yeah, I share my story pretty openly on my Instagram. My handle there is Jen Runs 2 Fit. It's the number 2.
Perfect.
That's it.
Cool. We'll have that in the show notes for everyone. So you can check that out. So you don't have to be writing it if you're driving or running or doing whatever you're doing while you're listening to this podcast right now. But I kind of wanted to just go again. We just met a couple weeks ago now at this point, and I do enough stalking to be like, I want to talk to her, but then I leave enough back where I'm like, okay, I don't want to know the entire story beforehand. So it can be fresh in my eyes too, but maybe just give a little background about your story and the journey you've been on.
Yeah, sure. So in 2017, I had my youngest son, Nolan. He's 5 now. And I reached my highest weight when I was pregnant with Nolan. I was over 300 pounds, right around 310 pounds. And I was really sick while I was pregnant with him. He had a lot of issues because of my health. And I realized after having him, I had to make a change in my life. So I have 2 kids. Delilah is now 9 years old. And so I knew that to be the mom that I wanted to be, I really had to make some changes in my life. And so after I had Nolan, I committed to doing more exercise and things like that. But I had previously lost weight before in college and gained it all back. And so I knew that the maintenance and long-term success was going to be an issue for me. It wasn't necessarily just losing the 20 pounds, gaining back 25, losing 30, gaining back 35. I would do that for the rest of my life. And I knew enough about myself to know that. And so I started researching weight loss surgery. I ended up having weight loss surgery. Actually, I'm coming up on 4 years this month, January 28th, 2019. And at that day I went in to have surgery, I weighed 265 pounds. And so I have lost and maintained 120 pounds since then. And now it's just my normal life. So when my weight loss journey started, it was all about just losing weight. I wanted to just lose as much weight as I could. I wanted to be skinny, and that's what I wanted, as fast as I could. And over time, I really realized that to make the long-term commitment to it, the long-term changes to it, that it was going to take time for those habits to really settle in and become just part of my life and my daily routine. And I was able to really do that. But it wasn't necessarily until I started running that I really committed to this, just really falling in love with running being part of my journey. And I did that. It would have been around the spring of 2019, I started running. And at that point, I'd probably lost about 60 pounds in the first 6 months after weight loss surgery, maybe even more than that. And so I felt good enough to run and try it. But I started by pushing Nolan in the stroller. And I didn't know the first thing about Running. I was never athletic at all. I was the person trying to get out of gym class, the mile, all the whole 9 yards. I'm definitely much more of a creative person than an athletic person. My opinion of that has changed now, but previous to now, that's how I felt. And so I was started out by running telephone pole to telephone pole. And that's what I did. I would start at one and run to the next one and stop and walk to the next one. And then I would just increase it over time. But that is how I started. And so when I joke about saying I started running intervals, I was really running telephone intervals as a runner when I started. And then that year I ran my first half marathon that October.
Oh, wow.
And so I just fell in love with the process of running, but more so, the commitment to it and the goals that I set with it and achieving those goals. It was always about if I set my mind on this distance today and I achieve it, like I just felt so good about being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I fell in love with running more so than just exercise in general. And so yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell as far as like how it came about. And my Instagram's kind of evolved over that. So
yeah, I think it's interesting because you said something there that kind of resonated with me. This idea of your initial thought in the process was like, I want to lose weight. Like I want to get skinny. Like you said, I want to get skinny. I want to lose weight. And then realized a sustainability thing of like that mentality is kind of what we deal with in diet culture in general, right? Is this idea of like, you need to get skinny. So do these things that definitely are not sustainable. And, you'll be fine. Eat this South Beach diet, dating myself, I think. And then going through that process, but then realizing that for long-term changes, you kind of have to like shift your mindset. And I think the same kind of thing happens like with your running, right? You said like started running, doing intervals, and then kind of just picked it up and understanding that you have to, when setting these goals or doing these things, you've then been able to shift your mindset each time to like maybe push a little harder, push a little further, which is just awesome to me.
Yeah, it's been really exciting over time with running specifically because each time I set a new goal and I'm able to work towards that, it's always really been about the distance for me and not necessarily a pace because I'd always say I'm a slower runner. And I know everyone has opinions about that. If you're a runner, you're a runner. Doesn't matter how fast you go. But I enjoy my time running. There's something very therapeutic about running for me. And when I had previously used food as a coping skill for my entire life, I think now when you're out there running for several hours, sometimes you're left to your own thoughts and devices and processing things in your life. And there's something really, really soothing about that too. But I do think that when you look at the long term and setting those goals, I've recognized that, over the last several years, I've had a lot of different surgeries and I've been recovering, each year from different surgeries. And so this is the first year I'm going into the new year, able to really set some pace goals, some distance and some, time goals. And I hired a coach to help me do that. And so even recognizing that I've still got a lot of room to grow with running. And so it never stops. You never stop evolving.
Yeah, I think running is definitely one of those things that people on the outside don't understand just in general. Like you hear the typical thing of like, I don't drive that far. Like, why would I run that far kind of thing? But it's this mentality of once you're in it, you kind of understand how it then affects other areas in your life. Have you seen any instances in your life where because of your discipline in running, it's kind of actually carried over into other things as well?
Yeah, I think just my commitment level to different things is a little bit different too. Prioritizing things differently in my life to make sure that I have the time to commit to everything. But even my own kids and my kids seeing that commitment has impacted them, which has been exciting too, because I don't, as someone who I always say I'm a recovering fat person because I don't want that for them. I want them to have a healthy lifestyle and to know that, it's okay to make healthier choices and to do that. And so I think it has carried over, but I think the big thing is just that commitment to it. I'm not lazy anymore. I'm very active now. I'm not going to sit here all weekend long because I'm off of work. I'm hiking and I've got other things to do. And I don't feel like I'm lazy anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be negative about it. It isn't that, but that was realistically, that was my life. I'd go to dinner and drink and sit here and watch, sessions and sessions of whatever TV show I wanted to watch. And that's what I did. And now instead I get up at 5 a.m. now on Saturday and run. So
it's a different kind of thing for sure. I think the interesting part to me with that, of hearing your story, and I've had some other people on the show with similar stories as well, is this idea of like wanting to have a change. In this case, weight loss, and in other cases it's been other things, but to kind of committing to that, of like, you have to put it all in. And sometimes, especially with we'll just call them like addictive personalities or behaviors. Like I had an addiction, an issue with like pornography and stuff like that for the longest time. And, that's subsided, but as in that mentality, you always have something that you do it. Luckily, we turn it into positive things like running or
transfer addiction. Yeah,
exactly. And not that it's any better per se, but at least it's a healthier option with that. And I think a lot of times it comes to that mindset shift of understanding that this is actually impacting more people. You made a mention about your kids and stuff, being able to see what you're accomplishing and knowing that the sacrifices that you're making, of whether it's sleep or what have you. Oh, puppies.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're making sacrifices of like sleeping in or doing these other things. And kind of, and at the same time, you're still being a mom. You're still supporting your family in that way. And I think that's the piece that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that you don't have to say it's one or the other. There are ways to do things together with that can make a lasting impression, where now they're going to see like, wait a second, I don't have to just be this or just be that. One of my friends, Christiana, she's been on the show a few times. She has this idea of like this definition of like, you're a mother, so you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way. She's an acrobatics person. She does like the ropes and stuff like that, just like crazy shit.
Oh yeah, the silks.
Yeah. She's just next level, and she's an awesome person. But it's like, she doesn't ever want to be defined by that thing. And it's like, because
put me in a box. Yeah,
because people get into these things where they feel like they have to fit into like you said, a certain box to make sure that they're seen a certain way, not realizing like, hey, like, for lack of a better way of saying it, who gives a shit of what people think about you? Like the people that care and love you and are around you, those are the people that are going to support you. They'll also prod you in the ass if you're going the wrong direction, but they're there to support you when you're kind of going your journey.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I do think that there is this, I get a lot of questions like, how do you have time to run, or how do you balance that? Because I work full time too, and in the last 3 years I spent working on my master's degree. So I was in grad school and working full time and running and training for my first marathon, and I would get those questions, and I said, well, I think there's a balance that comes with it too, and you take it from the top and not from the bottom anymore. And so when it's built into your day and that this is a priority for me, that it becomes the priority for everyone. Everyone understands that. And like you had said, the people in your life who matter support that. Whereas, I get it when you're a mom and you have other things in your life that are important to you, and you should, and you absolutely should. And it shouldn't matter that, you do spend 2 hours on Saturday morning running, or, that you're traveling for races and your kids are going, because the kids typically actually really enjoy that too. So
yeah, that statement you just made of you take it from the top, I think that's so powerful, because a lot of times people will look at their lives and say, of what I have left over, what can I do? Whether that's time, money, resources, talent, really anything across the board, they look at and say, what do I have left? And that's what I'm able to give from. But this take it from the top mentality, it reminds me of like tithing in church kind of thing, of like, you're giving your first, you're giving your best to whatever the situation is. And you're being intentional about the time or energy that you're giving there, which then inherently makes it more valuable, because you're saying, I'm making this a priority. It's not just getting my leftovers.
Exactly. It's not coming from the bottom anymore. And because what you find is the things that come from the bottom are typically what you miss in a day.
Mhm.
You just, if you don't get to it, it hasn't been a priority and you don't get to it. And so that's where you start slipping and you're losing out because it wasn't a priority enough in the beginning of the day or the beginning of the month to get it on there. So yeah, you take it from the top and put it on that schedule and make sure it's a priority.
Gosh,
And
I love
I mean,
that.
that was a big change for me. That was a big change for me. So, but as far as being a busy mom and a wife and working and all those things, it has to be. So,
Yeah, because that's where you come into that consistency, especially with something like health in general. You know, it's so easy, especially in our culture society today. It's a lot easier and it's a lot cheaper to just eat like shit and
it
not take
is.
care of yourself. But
It is.
when you try to be intentional about these things, it becomes like you're definitely going against the grain. And that's when
Mhm.
you really do need to be intentional with each step you take and make sure that you're not only that you're like making it a priority in your life, but making sure the people around you know it's a priority as well. Because you need those people to kind of hold you accountable. You know, my wife, I did dopey last weekend or whatever, and
I saw that.
and
Yeah.
it's been we get back here to Minnesota, and it's just like the streets are complete ice. It's garbage. So I
Yeah.
haven't run since then. I ran this morning, and it was just one of those where I was just like, this sucks. Like it was like feels like 6 degrees this morning. I was like, I don't want to do this. But knowing like every morning she knows like I need to get the runs in because in less than a month I've got another race coming up. And actually I think
Yeah.
when this episode comes out, I think I may have already run the race. I
Okay.
should be planning out these dates better when I'm doing these episodes. But um, you know, so it's one of those where you kind of get into this rhythm of having people around you being able to also push you in a way to be like, hey, this is what you wanted to do. You're saying it's a priority. Make sure you're taking it from the top, not the bottom. I'm going to use that all the time now. I circle that thing in my
Yeah.
notes. I love
Yeah.
it.
Use it. It's not copywritten. You can use it.
I think I just found the episode title.
Yeah. Yeah. Put it on there. A little C.
That's funny. So kind of like if we want to get into a little bit of this is probably more of the negative aspect of it. And I'm more from a curiosity. Let me say it can be
Sure.
from a negative aspect. Is I had someone on the show previously that had done some weight loss surgery as well, and she had talked about just the I wouldn't say like the hate and negativity that she got from it, but how it kind of took her for a loop of she did this thing because it was the option she needed to do for her health and what she needed to do. And she kind of got backlash for that. Did you have similar experiences or how did that play out with you?
I had a few people. Now I have an aunt who had gastric bypass years and years and years ago. And so for my family, there's a lot of my family members who struggle with weight too. And so for my family, they were very supportive. My extended family was very supportive, but I did have some friends and coworkers. I've been very open about my weight loss surgery. There are a lot of people who hide it because there is a negative connotation that comes with it. You know, you couldn't do it on your own. You didn't try hard enough. All you had to do is follow a diet. Why can you do it now and you couldn't do it then? Well, because my body has physically been changed that made me do it now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. But there were some that questioned that, and also the safety of it, worried about that. That was a fear of mine. Was you're going into surgery at almost 300 pounds. It's a big surgery. There's complications that can come with that. I had went so far as to, this sounds awful. I recorded videos with my kids, like telling them I loved them, like those kind of videos because I was scared.
Yeah.
But I also knew that if I didn't change something in my life, I probably wouldn't see as much of their life as what I wanted to see.
Right.
And so yeah, I had some, and I still get that some today. People will say, "Why don't you talk more about your weight loss surgery on your Instagram anymore?" And the biggest thing is not because I'm not talking about it. It's just it's part of my life. I'll always be a bariatric patient and have the biology that I have in my body because of weight loss surgery. But it's just part of my life. It's part of my routine, my nutrition, all those things. And 4 years later, I don't have as much to talk about with it anymore. That's really the only thing is it's just my normal life now. But people will ask that. But you do hear a lot of that. Why didn't you try harder? Why didn't you just go to the gym? Why didn't you work out? Um, and a lot of people expect weight loss surgery patients to fail. That comes up a lot. I know so and so who gained all their weight back. Why would you have surgery? They all gained their weight back. Um, and so that comes up a lot too.
Interesting. I think this is social media era in general. Obviously,
Yeah.
I get it with having a microphone and talking the amount of shit that I get all the time. But it's, I think it's one of those things where, to your point, is you don't need to talk about, you don't feel the need to talk about it because it's part of your life and you're kind of showing the hard work you're putting in now. And I think that's what kind of intrigued me is, being a crazy person like I am when I see other crazy people like, hey, you're up at 5 o'clock as well. Like, this is fun. We're texting on Instagram, or whatever, like post something and we're just like talking back and forth. We're like, it's 5:15 in the morning. Like, this is what's going on here.
Both heading out to run.
Yeah. So it's one of those where you're like, it helps to, we're talking about the things that are motivating us and moving us forward and kind of showing people like, hey, this isn't a quick fix situation. I think that's where a lot of people probably give you that negative connotation, right? Of like, well, you couldn't do the work, you couldn't do whatever, which obviously I'm not a doctor and I know there's a lot more smarter things about it and you do as well. But the aspect of, okay, it wasn't just a one thing and then I'm done. Like, I'm still continuously speaking for you, you're still putting in all of this work to make this thing in order to continue this, because a healthy lifestyle there's no quick fix. There's no quick drug that you can take or surgery you can get that basically solves all of your problems. And it's one of those where I think a lot of people don't understand that it is actually a journey. It's not that you are looking for a quick solution.
Initially, I was. Remember, I just wanted to be skinny initially.
Yeah.
but it was the long-term commitment to it too. So I knew that I had to change something. But yeah, sharing that part of it, that even 4 years later, you lose the bulk of your weight after weight loss surgery the first 18 months after surgery. Anything after that, you're really putting in the work to do it or to maintain it. Mm-hmm. Because at this point, I can eat a decent amount. I could easily probably gain weight. And so I think right now, that is the fun part of sharing it, is like, look where we're at now. Look at where you can be now too, 4 years later, and not gain the weight back and not, and be able to be active and live the life that you want to live. Because there's so much more. There's so much more. And I think when you live as a morbidly obese person, you miss out on a lot of things in life, because you either don't want to be out there, you're too tired, you can't walk, even walking, through a mall or from a parking space to Walmart or something, something like that is even something that is hard for someone who's morbidly obese. And so you miss out on a lot, and you don't have to. You don't have to. There's more to life. And there's different ways to get there, but weight loss surgery was my route. But
yeah, I think it all comes down to like a thing that I've said on the podcast a gazillion times. So the listeners are probably like, yeah, we get it, Jonathan. This is your motto.
We've heard it.
Yeah, we get it, dude. Shut up. And I'm like, well, thanks. This idea of getting comfortable with discomfort, right? Regardless of the situation, whether you're overweight or you just aren't going out and doing things, or whatever the case might be. Yeah. It's this idea of like, we just sit where it's comfortable. And if like this feels good, if I'm not going to stretch myself or push the limits in any way, well, then I'm never going to grow. Like there's no growth in comfort. You kind of have to stretch yourself and build. It's just like any workout thing, right? The reason we get stronger is we are literally tearing our muscles.
Right.
You're literally tearing your muscles and building them back stronger. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like when we do these things, we're pushing ourselves to limits, knowing that there is growth to come, but there is sacrifice in that. And again, intentionality and purpose, it kind of all wraps together as like, in order to do this. And I think people like you and I use goals to kind of get us there, right? Of like, I've got this 50 state goal, and you've got your running coach to help you with the marathon this fall. Like, all of these things to get us where we want to go, because that's our additional motivation. Like we already have it in us, but we kind of need that, like, I want to say, I don't like saying finish line. I like saying like checkpoint of like, here's the next checkpoint that we're going in along the journey, because the journey's not going to end with, with the next race. It's not going to end when I hit my 50 states, even though my wife thinks it's going to end. Sorry.
We've got to go to the 7 continents.
Yeah. Which, trust me, we're getting things. I'm like, I've only got 2 more, like, so knock on, where's my wood? Knock on wood. I've got Boston in April, charity running with Boston, and then I'll only have 2 world majors left, London and Tokyo.
Yeah, I saw you've only got a couple more.
Yeah, so we're getting there, and 7 more states, and it's nerve wracking. I've ran so much already, and I'm like, how do I still have 7 left? But at the same time, it's like a sad of like, I only have 7 left.
But you only have 7 left. Yeah, I do that. I do. I mean, it's because it's the time commitment. You work on it for so long. And I think I've done that after running my first marathon. And it was like, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. Like, and you get in this weird spot, like it becomes an identity thing that you're doing, and this goal. And then it's like, now what? Now what do I do?
Yeah. So that's why these races, the smart races, start registration right at the finish line. Because they know you're going to be like, I hate this. And you cross the finish line. You're like, wait, I can't wait till next year.
Yeah.
Give me this next year, because this is exactly what I want to do again. So.
I know. I was the same one. I said I was one and done, and here I am. So.
Yeah. I said the same thing. I think I didn't run at all in school, because same kind of thing. I was a baseball player, and they're like, you have to run a mile. I'm like, a mile? Like, get out of here with this. I run 90 feet. That is as far as you're going to get me to run. I'm not hitting a double. I'll just tell you right now, it's not going to happen. And so then, I get to running, and I ran a 5K because I needed something to do outside when I moved to Ohio from Florida. And then within a year of running my first 5K, I ran a marathon. And that was 2011. 54 races, marathon or longer at this point, or something like that in the past decade. So it's like, I'm a special kind of stupid, but I think it's one of those things where we get into this, like, the journey is so important. And I don't think a lot of people realize what the journey will entail until they actually take the step to kind of start that process.
I totally agree. And they don't understand how you feel about it, unless they're doing it themselves too and get it. Because you can't describe it. You can't describe what it's like to finish something like that, or go through the training to do it, or commit to it. You can't really put it into words specifically unless you've lived through it. You kind of get it. So yeah, totally. I get that.
Well, Jen, thanks so much for being on the show today. This was so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. I've got my goofy dog. I posted about my puppy, and she's like jumping all over me. So I'm like, come on.
We love dogs on the show. So any interruptions are fine, whether it's dogs or kids or any of that stuff. But to everyone listening, we'll have all of her information in the show notes, so you'll be able to connect with her. Again, she posts really inspiring things, lots of funny things as well. Some of I think the one you did with like the race budget, I think it was today or yesterday or something like that.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I'm not on a race budget.
Yeah, definitely. Like budget, what's that? I don't know what those are. That's an unlimited category in my mint.com right now.
Yeah. I don't even, that comes off the top. It comes off the top, not the bottom.
It's not about what's left. This is in the budget. No. Okay. I'm going to tell my wife that. She's not going to agree with that, but I'm going to tell her that and see where that kind of gets me.
Good luck.
Love that. But yeah, everyone else, we'll have all of our information in the show notes as well. But you can reach out to me on social media everywhere at flores.run. Subscribe, leave a review for the podcast. Hangry Gear, check it out. Got our hoodies and stuff like that. Where's it at? There you go. wearehangry.com. Thanks for joining me today. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you guys next week.